So, how do we find what exactly our level of unemployment is within our economy? This is probably something you're actually fairly familiar with. You maybe have seen a number come up on the news where they say that the unemployment rate is 4.2%. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, first of all, the unemployment rate is just that current percentage of people that are in our labor force that are unemployed. And so the way we find that is a simple formula where we just say the unemployment rate is equal to the number of people unemployed divided by the labor force, and then we multiply it by 100 to get a percentage. And this is all just saying what's the number of people who are unemployed divided by the number of people who are either employed or unemployed, because that makes up our labor force, or what percentage of our labor force is unemployed. Let's take a look at an example from September of 2020. So I went ahead and pulled the data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And first and foremost, what we need to do is figure out what is our labor force. Well, if you remember, our labor force is the number of people that are employed plus the number of people that are unemployed. Well, according to the BLS, the number of people that were employed was 147,563,000. So about 147 million people were employed. They worked at least 1 hour per week for pay. Now, what was the number of people that were unemployed? Well, in September, it was 12.58 million people. So these two together, when we add them up, it comes up with our labor force. And when we add those up, we get 160.143 million. So that means that our labor force, these two boxes together, was comprised of 160 million people. Now, this does not make up our entire adult population. Remember, the entire population also includes those that are not in the labor force. So the 100.599 million people not in the labor force, where if we add these up together, all of that together makes up our civilian, non-institutionalized population. But it's just those top two boxes we're looking at, the ones that are either employed or unemployed, that make up our labor force. But we said that the unemployment rate is equal to the number of people unemployed divided by the labor force. Or what we're trying to figure out is what percentage of those top two boxes together is just the long, skinny, narrow one in the middle. And so what we do is we take the unemployed number, the 12.58 million, divided by our total labor force of 160.143 million. And what we do is after we multiply by 100 is we get a percentage, and that percentage is our unemployment rate. And so we would say in September of 2020, our unemployment rate was 7.86%. And what that means is that 7.86% of our labor force did not have a job but was actively seeking work. So again, the BLS gathers this data every single month. And here's actually that data from the course of the last, 12 years or so. Now, if we look at this, this actually tells a story. If you look back in 2009, we actually start to see the unemployment rate go up and up and up until it peaks in October of 2009 at 10%. Well, this is because we're in the midst of the Great Recession. And as you know, the Great Recession, when it's a recession, people start losing their jobs. And that's why the unemployment rate was going up. And then we start to see the long recovery after the Great Recession. You see throughout the end of 2009 into 2010, the number be in the nines, and it eventually drops into the eights in late 2011, and then into the sevens the following year, the sixes the following year, the fives the following year after that in 2014, and then we get all the way down into the fours and even into the threes in 2018. But what we end up seeing is that due to the coronavirus pandemic, we noticed that in early 2020, in January, the unemployment rate was 3.6%, 3.5% in February. But when things started to shut down in the economy, in March, the unemployment rate took a little bit of an uptick. But in April, it really had its major hit. The unemployment rate jumped up to 14.7%, a level that it had not hit since the Great Depression. And then May, it went down a little bit to 13.3. And then in September, as we had just seen, most recent data shows us at 7.9% unemployment rate.